Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1558A and today's date is May 2nd, 2018, and the title of the episode is Central Banks Make Their Move on Cryptocurrency with Fed Electronic Money. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we know the central banks, they have been pushing and demonizing gold and silver and cryptocurrencies. I know there's a lot of people out there that do not like cryptocurrencies, but the central bankers are completely nervous and afraid of gold and silver and cryptocurrencies because it's another form of money. Even though people don't believe cryptocurrencies is another form of money, it is. And they're very nervous about this. And this is why they've been talking about cryptocurrency being used for money laundering, being used for criminality, being used for everything else, drugs and whatever else you want to come up with. They continually harp on the same exact message over and over and over. Now, what's very interesting is that their entire story is about to fall apart. And they are now pushing a different agenda where they're not going into the crypto market. They're going to be going into something completely different, which is really not completely different. It is pretty much the same that we already have today, but we're going to discuss that in a minute. Let's talk about why their entire story is completely falling apart. The Hong Kong Financial Services and Treasury, the FSTB, they released a report on April 30th on the status of money laundering and terrorism financing. Now, the report concluded that virtual currencies like Bitcoin are not particularly involved in either type of financial crime. The FSTB notes that although there is inherent money laundering and terrorism financing vulnerabilities related to virtual currencies, they're really not being used to push this. What is being used to push this? Oh, that's right, cash. That's what's being used. Now, the report did say that virtual currencies, well, they are used in crypto Ponzi schemes and cybercrimes. Now, they mentioned WannaCry, that WannaCry attack where basically it locked down your system, held it hostage until you paid using Bitcoin. Now, again, once you do this, it is on the ledger. You can track down where this wallet is. You can track down with the address where it has gone. Of course, you don't know the names and things like that. So this type of crime most likely was being pushed out there by intelligence agencies, and they probably took a wallet or something and brought this out to everyone's attention to make it look like at the time it was North Korea, because I think that's where they were pointing the finger. They were also pointing the finger at Russia. Now, you need to understand that because of this report and because of what we've been talking about, we know that cryptocurrencies, once again, it'd be ridiculous to use them in money laundering or terrorism because you can trace everything. Cash, on the other hand, which is used in money laundering and terrorism and other financial crimes, very difficult to trace. So we can see right now that their entire story is completely falling apart. And in a little bit, we're going to discuss why they've been demonizing cryptocurrencies and what they're going to try to make us do. Because we know they've been planning this for a while, and you don't demonize something like this unless you have something that you want to push forward to make everyone look at this instead of that. We see that ADP, they came out and they printed their weakest job gain since November. And this is a very big miss. It's the biggest miss in 7 years. And once again, the job situation is not doing well. Yes, these numbers are manipulated. They've been manipulating them since Obama, actually before Obama, but when we hit the 2008 crisis, they pushed this manipulation really, really hard to make everyone believe that the economy has been recovering, that we're doing well, and nothing has changed. The manipulation is exactly the same as it was before. Nothing has changed whatsoever. What has changed is what the real economy is doing, with the indicators that we've been presenting showing that we're in a recession, or some of them saying that we're headed towards a recession. Actually, some saying even a depression. And we can see from the real economy with retail, GDP, and everything like that, everything is starting to completely fall apart. We're seeing a lot of companies where they're saying their earnings are not there. We're seeing food establishments shut their doors, and we're also seeing automotive dealers saying that, or automotive manufacturers saying that, listen, we need to restructure. We need to change what we've been doing, because what we've been doing is not going to work moving forward. Because again, what they've been doing is they've been selling automobiles by using the subprime people. And those people have been delinquent on their payments. A lot of them have been defaulting, and it doesn't look good. Actually, Ford announced that it's going to hack off a large portion of its business, a move that will make the company 90% reliant on its pickups, trucks, SUVs, and commercial vehicles by the year 2020. The company is targeting $25.5 billion in cost cuts by the year 2022. Now, they're saying this is a restructure. A lot of jobs are going to disappear, and things are not going well. Remember, the smaller subprime auto lenders are starting to implode right now. And the larger companies, they're going to be next, and the whole thing is going to crash. And I believe the auto manufacturers, those that are looking at these signs, are seeing the writing on the wall, and a lot of them are going to cut their costs because they realize what is coming. Just like in 2008, many of the manufacturers, especially GM, didn't realize what was happening, and they just kept on spending, taking out more credit, and before you knew it, Pontiac was gone, Saturn was gone, and basically they shut all of the doors, shut the plants, shut everything. Now in the housing market, we can see that everything is completely falling apart, and we see mortgage rates, well, they have jumped to 2011 levels. Now, this is pretty darn fast. The average interest rate for 30-year fixed-rate mortgages with conforming loan balances of about $453,000 or less, with 20% down, jumped to 4.8% for the week ending April 27th, from 4.73% in the prior week, and from 4.66% 2 weeks ago. This is coming from the Mortgage Bankers Association. At 4.8%, the average 30-year fixed rate is now equal to the highest rate since September of 2013. And the last time the rate was higher than 4.8% was in 2011. At 5.2%, the average mortgage rate will hit the highest level since 2010. 5.5% would take it to the highest level since 2008. Now think about this for a second. Prior to 2008, the interest rates were moving up. When we hit 2008, they were on their way down already, because the Fed already started the domino effect and everything started to fall apart. Here we are, we're approaching the 2008 rate. And believe me, in a couple of weeks, we're probably going to hit it, which means it's going to push a lot of people out of the housing market. So if we look at this, the big difference between 2010 and now, and between 2008 and now, is that home prices have skyrocketed since then in many markets, by over 50% in some markets such as Denver, Dallas, or the 5-county San Francisco Bay Area. For example, according to Case-Shiller, home price index has increased by 25 to 40%, which means these homes are completely unaffordable. Now, put on top of this, those people that have been losing their job, who've gotten other jobs, but they're not high-paying jobs, they're part-time jobs. Many people have 1, 2, 3 part-time jobs, or they found another job, but they're making less money. Other people, they're not getting wage increases like they used to, or basically the company said we're not going to give any wage increases. They can't afford these homes. And again, this is why Fannie Mae is out there, and they have allowed 3% down on a home with no income check. Pretty soon you're going to see 0% down, because again, this is the end game. If we look at the mortgage applications for the week of April 27th, we see they're down by 2.5%. And they're going to continually decline as time goes on, because people are being thrown out of the market, which means the housing market is going to fall apart, which it is already. Now, the Federal Reserve, they've been looking at cryptocurrency, and we talked about the report where they're saying that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they're really not being used in money laundering, terrorism, financing, even though the central banks are out there and the corporate media is out there telling us, yes, they are, which means that's the place you probably should be. just like gold and silver. It's a barbarous relic. That's where you need to be, because when the system comes down, wherever they're telling you not to be is where you need to be, and every place they're telling you you should be is a place where you shouldn't be. Just like they're telling you the stock market's doing great, housing's fine, you should all be in that. And what happened? Think back to 2008. Everything fell apart. Back then they told you don't even touch gold. And then all of a sudden gold started to skyrocket. Yes, they had the ability to manipulate it. But again, this is a central bank system. But again, if you came in earlier than that point of time, even though they had manipulation, you would have purchased the gold at 500, 800, and you still would have made out. What happened was people waited until gold and silver and everything else hit its highs, and then the central bank realized, whoa, we can't let this go up any further. We need some manipulation here. We need to bring this down, and that's what they started to do. And a lot of people bought at the height. Those people that bought at 500, 800, 900, they were like, hey, everything's good. So we can see right now the Fed, they have been demonizing cryptocurrency and gold for a specific reason. Now, the Fed, and we know from last year, they made some headlines saying that they're going to be looking at a cryptocurrency, and they decided, well, maybe we don't need to look at a cryptocurrency. Maybe we should be looking at something completely different, which is actually the same that we have today, but they're making it seem like it is different. Maybe we will create something called the Central Bank Electronic Money for All. And this is coming from the St. Louis Fed. They're saying that this is something that would be easily implemented. The Fed would only need to allow households and firms to open accounts with it, which would allow the central banks to make payments with the Fed-issued electronic money instead of commercial bank deposits. A large part of the population will consider Fed electronic money a close substitute for cash, and this will make it easier to say goodbye to cash. For instance, legislation introduced last week by Senator Kristen Gillibrand calls for 36,000 post offices around the U.S. to add basic banking services such as savings and checking accounts and short-term loans. It aims to reach a still significant number of unbanked and underbanked Americans with an offering similar to that of postal systems overseas. With the bill, the New York Democrat said she hopes to wipe out the so-called payday lenders. Is this really why they're doing it? Most likely not. It looks like they're building this up to usher in the Fed electronic money. Now, this new alternative form of electronic money would have a disciplinary effect on commercial banks. They'd be forced to alter their business models to attract depositors, for example, taking fewer risks or holding more capital, offering higher interest rates. Because again, everything would be flowing through the central bank system, and this would be a Fed electronic money. It has nothing to do with the United States. It's like the Federal Reserve note, but now it's the Fed electronic money. The Fed would be able to set the interest rates on household accounts as its main policy tool. Basically, Fed would have more control over everything. So this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to convince you that gold and silver, cryptocurrencies, they are no good for you. And what we do need is we need something that the Fed can control. Remember, the central banking system, they want everything centralized. They want full control. They don't like decentralization. They don't like it where you can hold physical gold or physical silver because they have no control over that. So the St. Louis Fed went on to say that, listen, central banks just don't want to get into the business of issuing anonymous virtual currency that could be used by drug cartel to launder money. We would rather have a centralized system where we don't have that. And the Fed electronic money would allow people to go to the electronic system, which is just like virtual currency, at virtual cryptocurrency, and you won't have to use cash. So you can use your phones, you can use everything else that you've been using, but there'd be no more cash, and this would be electronic money. Well, isn't this really the same thing that we have today? And all they're doing is getting rid of cash? Yes, that's what it is. And the Fed will take more control over everything because they will control the interest rates on the accounts. You would directly get the Fed money from them. I mean, think about what they're trying to do here. They're tricking everybody, making them think that this is just like cryptocurrencies, and that's how they're going to promote it. Don't go with cryptocurrency because it's used by terrorists and money launderers and everything else. Go with the Fed money. It's safe. It's good for you. You don't need cash anymore. And this is what they're trying to push right now. There's always a reason why they come out and they demonize something, because that means their plan is to promote something they have, and that's what they're trying to do. Now, we talked about how the corporate media, they were going to start to basically put up articles to show that the economy is not doing well. It's not as strong as Trump has said, and we're already starting to see this coming out of the Washington Post. The headline reads, "Trump has not made the economy great again." And they went into the GDP numbers, how everything's manipulated. You can't really follow them, and it's just hilarious because we know they're manipulated. Nothing has changed since Obama. So if they're saying it's manipulated now, then it was manipulated during Obama's time. But again, what they're trying to do is they're setting it up because they know eventually they want to point the finger. So already we're seeing the article coming out of the Washington Post and many other publications saying that the economy is not doing as well. And Jason Furman, who was the advisor to Obama, well, he's giving some pointers to basically tell you what the final GDP numbers will be. And he's talking about revisions, how 2.9% isn't real, and this is why it's much lower than that. And he goes back to the same 2 to 2.5% where the economy came in during Obama's reign. Now, basically, those numbers and these numbers, but all of it is the same manipulation. There is no difference whatsoever. What Trump is doing and the Patriots, they are pushing what they've set up, and they're keeping what they set up to push it to the red line, to say this is the system you've been using, we haven't touched it, nothing's changed, and this is the calculations you've been using, and now you're calling us out on the things that you've been doing. Think about what they're doing here, and the reason why they're becoming so desperate to blame this on Trump, because it is time to bring the system down. And we're going to see a lot more of these articles. We're going to see a lot more of the corporate media saying the economy is not doing that well, and it's going to be out there. And of course, then Trump is going to call them on it, and this is where you're going to see the fight out in the open on the corporate media, just like he called out the news, calling them fake news and things like that. He's going to start doing that with the economy now, because he's going to say, well, these are the numbers that Obama used. So you're saying the numbers that he used are fake also, and he's going to trap them. That's basically what he's doing. And this is his entire plan, is to basically control the narrative. And this is what he's been suckering them into, where he can control what is going on and letting people say, well, wait a minute. If they're the same calculations and nothing's changed, was it fake back then and it's fake now? What's going on here? That's what he wants people to start to do, to question all of this. And it looks like we are headed in this way. And we are headed for a transition. They all know it. We know it. The system is being moved from the west to the east. We've been talking about this for a very long time. So get prepared, because we're headed in that direction. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.